The latest on the governor's race, how a change in Michigan's congressional delegation impacts deals in Washington. Show us the money. We'll add up spending on this year's races and what to watch. The biggest issues in our state moving forward. Our live MiWeek election special starts right now.
Recently, Michigan's economy has begun to turn around. Michigan's gained over 250,000 new jobs. We've paid off $20 billion in long-term debt. And our population is increasing for the first time in a decade. But to make Michigan a top 10 state, there's still plenty of work to be done. Step up and help put Michigan on top. Learn what you can do at MichiganTurnaroundPlan.com.
Funding is also provided by Delta. MiWeek Election 2014.
Good evening, and thanks so much for joining us for our live MiWeek election special. I'm Christy McDonald. We're in the last 24 hours of TV ads and robocalls. Tomorrow is Election Day, and though turnout for midterm elections is usually on the lighter end, there are big races here in Michigan this year that will have serious impact. Voters are heading to the polls across Michigan on Tuesday, the culmination of what's become a fierce election season. At the top of the ticket, the race for governor. Republican Governor Rick Snyder, touting a balanced budget and steadily recovering state economy, is seeking a second term.
Here's a list of what we've done in the last 3 years.
And he's up against Democratic challenger Mark Schauer, former congressman, heavily supported by unions, vowing to repeal Snyder's pension tax and invest in education.
When we vote, we win.
Focus is also on Lansing with state, house, and Senate races. Republicans are looking to hang on to the majorities in both, but Democrats are targeting House seats, wanting to shift the balance of power. How could that change next year's agenda? Also this election, a big change in Michigan's congressional delegation. Congressman John Dingell, Mike Rogers, and Dave Camp all exiting, as well as U.S. Senator Carl Levin, whose open seat has spawned a pricey fight between Republican Terry Lynn Land and Congressman Gary Peters. How does this loss of clout in D.C. affect us at home? And all the ads and all the money. How much is being spent this election? Who is spending it? And did it really make a difference? It all comes down to Election Day and what our leadership will look like, from our counties to our courts to the state capitol to Washington, D.C. And voter turnout will impact it all. So it's time for your guide to this election. Remember, we are live tonight, so send us your thoughts and your questions on Twitter at MiWeek, and you can use the hashtag MyVote. So let's bring in our MiWeek contributors, Nolan Finley of the Detroit News, Stephen Henderson of the Detroit Free Press, and we will start with the governor's race tonight. But first, gentlemen, happy Election Eve.
Good to be here.
It's nice to have a live special. And of course, we have to start off with the governor's race because it has gotten so close. You just saw a new poll. You just pulled out your phone a couple minutes ago, an email. And what did you just see?
There's a Mitchell poll that showed the race tied at 47%. Actually, the governor was at 47.1%. Mark Schauer was at 46.9%.
Oh my gosh.
So it reflects this trend of the race tightening that we've seen over the last couple days. It's not tightening because people are changing their minds or moving. It's because the pollsters are reweighting to account for this incredible effort on the Democratic side to get absentee voters, get voters who don't vote in midterm elections to cast these absentee ballots. Well, we'll see how that turns out.
Have the Republicans been as aggressive in that sense?
The numbers I saw Friday, on the returned absentee ballots, it was virtually a dead heat. I think the pollsters might be overly buying into the hype of the Democratic Party in terms of this absentee ballot drive. So far, they've been even, which is about where you would expect.
But in terms of
this poll overweights Democratic turnout by what, 5%?
Plus 5, I think it was.
You know, I'm not sure that's going to play out.
I mean, the truth is that the Democrats have got a lot more absentee ballots out this year than Republicans have, and typically the return on absentees is about 94%. So they will be up.
But they're nowhere near that. As of Friday night, they were almost dead even. These absentee ballot votes don't count unless you turn them in.
Well,
and so they send them to a lot of marginal voters who may be under the Reader's Digest
but the voters had
already out in the trash.
All right, well, let's talk a little bit about messaging in this campaign and where it's been in the last week or so. This weekend we saw President Obama was in town. Governor Chris Christie was in town also today campaigning for Governor Snyder. So where have we seen any kind of shift in messaging in these campaigns, Stephen?
Well, I mean, I think in the last week you go back to the base. You got to get your core voters who you are counting on in your models for election day to get up and go to the polls and vote for your guy, you got to get them excited to do that. And you know, you always bring in the biggest guns you have to do it. So you bring in the president for the Democratic base, you bring in Chris Christie for the Republican base. Neither one of them is popular with independents, but that's not who you're worried about now. You want your folks to vote.
The governor switched his message late last week to talk about his success in Detroit, because the polling is saying that's a very positive message in Metro Detroit, and he needs a big turnout, particularly in Oakland County and Western Wayne County, and people are responding to what he's done in Detroit. So, and Mark Schauer was advised to, you know, give us some specifics, tell us what your plan is. Tell us what you're going to do. I'm not sure he made that shift entirely.
We would have never predicted in talking about this race this spring that it would end up being this close, this down to the wire. What do you think is the largest factor in this race which makes it so close, Stephen?
Well, I mean, I think for starters, you got to start with the governor. I mean, this is a very weak incumbent. If in any of the models, a generic Democrat running against Snyder with his 45% numbers and sort of low approval should have been an easy win. This should have been something that the Democrats could have taken very easily from the Republicans. Mark Schauer was not that Democrat. I mean, he had very little name recognition out of the box, and in defining himself, he didn't do it in a way that made it clear to people what he wanted to do and how he would get it done. I've heard that over and over again from people here, and so that's how you end up with, it's sort of a battle of weaklings. There is neither candidate was able to close the deal decisively by election day.
But Steve, take a national look at this. All over the country, you have incumbent governors in trouble. Florida, Wisconsin, Kansas, Colorado, Pennsylvania. Everywhere you look, they're in races very similar to this. Senators, incumbent senators in razor-thin races. What we may be seeing here is an anti-incumbent wave that reflects a growing frustration on the national electorate to the slow recovery. And you know, they can't get it at President Obama. He's not on the ballot this time. I think they're taking their frustration out on incumbent governors.
All right.
That's not unusual for the second midterm in a two-term president, is that you lose seats, people are tired of you, they feel
But
like...
Republicans and Democrats, Democratic incumbent governors, are in trouble all across the country.
Let's talk real quick before we leave the governor's race. What will it come down to in terms of turnout? You were talking a lot about Oakland County and what numbers we might see there.
Well, I mean, I think the turnout's going to be pretty good statewide. I mean, you want to take a look at what the turnout is going to be in Detroit, where that could make a big difference for Mark Schauer. I think you're looking at Oakland County to see who wins it. It would be very difficult for Mark Schauer, I think, to win this race if he doesn't carry Oakland County, or at least come really close to doing it. If you see the governor rack up big numbers there, I think the race might be over.
You can't discount Western Michigan, and that's where the Republicans have to focus. Terry Lynn Land's campaign, the collapse of that campaign, has hurt the governor in Western Michigan. That's her home turf. She should have been able to rally voters to the polls, and I'm not sure she's doing that. Democrats spent a lot of money to marginalize her out in Western Michigan, so we'll see what Western Michigan voters do.
All right, well, taking a look at the lawmakers who will have to work with the governor come January. Republicans, well, they want to hang on to the majority in the state Senate and in the state House, but Democrats are hoping to change the balance of power there. So while we've been looking at this a little bit and saying the Senate might be safe, it's the House where there are a couple of seats that are up for grabs and a couple of close races.
Yeah, this could turn. I mean, there are close races, and if we wake up tomorrow and Democrats are turning out in the sort of numbers that the pollsters might suspect, a lot of House members could be in trouble. I'm keeping my eye up in Oakland County on that Kesto-Colvin race. Representative Kesto had a tough primary Tea Party challenger. He survived that. We'll see if he can get through tomorrow. Also down in Monroe, where Dale Zoran is term limited. The race for that seat is tight. It looks like Democrats might flip that one, and that had been a pretty safe Republican seat. You
know, when you talk about election and you talk about people turning out to vote in this election, Stephen, I'm always constantly hammering the point that it's these state representatives that are going to be making decisions that directly impact funding for your cities and for your schools. And these are very, very important decisions to be made.
Yeah, and that's what we saw over the last 4 years, was that the difficulties that Rick Snyder had as governor often came from the legislature. They either didn't want to do something he wanted to do or wanted to do something on their own that he wasn't too keen on, and so they consistently sort of backed him into a corner where he had to make tougher decisions than I think he anticipated 4 years ago. I mean, he got himself embroiled in controversies that he never contemplated, I think.
And one of those senators who gave the governor some of the most trouble, Pat Kobach, out in western Wayne County, in the Canton-Plymouth area, in Livonia, is facing a really tough challenge from a well-funded candidate, Diane Slavin. Democrats put a lot of money in this race.
Yeah.
I mean, it looks like Kobach's going to hang on, but if that race flips, I mean, it might tell you something about
well,
where the
and
electorate's going.
Kobach's in trouble because what? He's voted against everything, but he has really taken a beating this year about roads. He is against any new taxes to fix our roads. I think that's really unpopular, especially in that part of Wayne County.
Let's talk really quickly about the Senate and taking a look at how some of the races are going to shake out. The belief is that the Republicans are going to still hang on to the majority, but maybe not that super majority. What are you watching in terms of Senate races, Stephen?
That Kobach race, I think, is the one to watch. That is a real bellwether in terms of how angry voters are at legislators about the road problem. We saw the governor put a road package on the table that he couldn't get his own party to vote for. Kobach is one of the leaders of that sort of pushback there. So if you see Slavin's get that, I think voters are saying we gotta have more cooperative legislators.
And I think it's interesting because then there's a couple of different scenarios that could shake out come January if you have Governor Snyder back in office and then perhaps you have a Democratic House and a Republican Senate. Or you could have Mark Schauer in office and that you could have a Republican-controlled House and Senate. I mean, you've got different scenarios
I think
here.
it's really unlikely I think the most unlikely scenario is that the governor is returned to office and the House flips to Democrats. I think if the House flips to Democratic, that's a surge that should carry Schauer over the finish line, and so he'd have a divided legislature to deal with. The worst thing that could happen, I think, is having a Democratic governor and a fully Republican House, because Republicans have made
Okay, then
Well,
what
no,
could you get done at
don't
all?
wanna
The
cooperate.
absolute worst thing would be having a Democratic governor and a Democratic House and Senate.
No, that would be wonderful.
Katie barred the door. We saw that
be
in
wonderful.
Washington for a while.
Got a lot done in those 2 years.
Yeah, unfortunately.
All right, well, we'll be watching those. Okay, now a look at our congressional delegation and all of the changes there. First off, what will the impact of Congressman Dingell, Rogers, and Camp, as well as Senator Levin leaving, have on Michigan? This is a huge change in our delegation. Nolan, let me start with you.
Well, I mean, particularly you got to watch out for the auto industry. Those were all congressmen who, protected the interest of the auto industry and auto workers. We're sending to replace Levin a guy to the Senate, looks like Gary Peters, who has taken a whole lot of money from California environmentalists. Where will he be on key energy issues and key environmental issues that impact this auto industry? That's a big question that he hasn't been able to answer very well.
I think, first of all, I think Gary Peters will be fine on the auto industry. He's been a friend of the auto industry in the House.
But he's got $3 million of Tom Steyer's money in his pocket.
No
now,
question. But the auto industry is embracing the same green agenda that Steyer is pushing. He may be pushing a little harder and faster.
The auto
I don't see
industry
that
is
as much of
not divorcing itself from carbon fuel.
Absolutely, and they can't, not quite yet. I think in terms of replacement, you're losing a lot of years, you're losing a lot of seniority and influence. You have to do that. I mean, that's the way the world works.
Right.
Nobody stays forever. You hope not to do it in the bunches that we're doing it now. I mean, the number of people with real seniority who are just taking off because they've been there so long. Michigan's had a problem getting people to sort of groom successors and then get out of the way so that they can take over. We hope not to repeat that again.
We've got some Congress people who are seasoning. I mean, Candace Miller is growing in influence down there, now one of the highest ranking women in Congress.
Sure. Debbie Stabenow is one of the most powerful.
Debbie Stabenow's moving up, and Debbie Dingell's going to come down there not as a true freshman. She's a redshirt freshman. She knows everybody and everything. I think she's going to quickly develop some influence.
And also, and again, people have to vote tomorrow, so we don't have the finals on these races. But expected winners, Mike Bishop and also Brenda Lawrence. Interesting new roles for them as well in Congress.
Yeah, well, Brenda Lawrence has wanted a congressional seat now. I think is this her third time, second or third time running for that. We'll see how she does in that role. I think voters were skeptical of her before. They embraced her this time. Mike Bishop is somebody we've known for a long time in Michigan. Has been, in the legislature here and was Senate Majority Leader. I think he will take pretty naturally to the role in Washington. It's not that different, but they'll both be freshmen, and so they will have to sort of toe the line that the parties want them to toe for some time.
Let's talk about some of the races that yet are still up in the air tomorrow. What's happening in the 11th Congressional District? This has been kind of an interesting saga.
And that's a really solid Republican district, and Dave Trott has spent a good amount of energy and money on that race. I wouldn't think, unless there's some really strange wave that we aren't seeing, I wouldn't expect that race to go to the Democrat, to McKenzie, but
this is the Oakland County question again, though.
Right.
What happens in Oakland County tomorrow really does have a lot to do with which way the state is headed. And if you see Mark Schauer do really well in Oakland County, I think Dave Trott could be in trouble.
That would require a lot of straight ticket voting, I think.
And no dent whatsoever in Kerry Benevolio's write-in campaign.
No, I mean, a write-in, who's going to remember to walk in there and vote for? I mean, you might have a handful of votes. That's not going to work.
So this discussion was actually for Greg Andrews, who just tweeted us moments ago. Can you discuss the 11th Congressional District race? So there you go, Greg. We're taking your questions on Twitter. You can use the hashtag MyVote, or you can just do it at MiWeek. I'm watching along right now. Okay, so if you're not sick of the robocalls and the TV ads, you're not alone. The number of competitive races means a lot of money has been flowing through the state, and not just the campaigns, but third-party money as well. Take a look.
I'm Gary Peters, and I'm running for the U.S. Senate.
I'm Terry Lynn Land, and I approve this message.
It's impossible to turn on the TV without being bombarded by political ads. And all of those ads cost a lot of money. According to the Center for Public Integrity, spending on the governor's race in Michigan totals almost $25 million. Over half, about $15 million of that, come from outside groups. In the U.S. Senate race, just over $30 million was spent. Gary Peters spent almost $4 million, and Terry Lynn Land spent just over $5.5 million. The rest of the spending comes from outside groups. In the race for the Michigan Supreme Court, with 3 seats available, about $2 million has been spent, $1.7 million from the Michigan Republican Party. And that puts Michigan 6th in the country in terms of TV ad spending. So what kind of impact have the ads had this election cycle? And again, we did that piece and that research about, 6 days ago, and I know there's been a late influx in money in some of these races. But what kind of impact do you think these ads have had, Nolan?
Well, I think they've decided the races. I think if you look at the governor's race, the ads are all Schauer had. It's all you saw of him. It's all people have known him from, and they were very effective ads. I mean, his message was tapped into the grievance vote in Michigan, tapped into the restlessness, the discontent. In the Senate race, I think Gary Peters destroyed Terry Lynn Land, or helped her.
Well, I think that's all you had in the Senate race, because you didn't have them meeting in any kind of debate forum. So that's all you really had.
Well, it's all you had in both races for the most part. We had one gubernatorial debate that we all participated in. This is how people know the candidates.
I think the other problem here, though, is the arms race aspect to this, that in order to compete, you have to raise so much money now, and third parties come in and, in some cases double the amount of money it is. It is a degradation of the process that concerns me. You do not know who these third party issue ads are coming from. They don't have to disclose who they are or where they're raising their money from. It is moving more of the process into the shadows.
But in Michigan, it was a bargain, really. I mean, we said $24 million on the governor's race and $30 million on the Senate race. In North Carolina and Kentucky, the Senate races have topped $100 million.
Right.
Those are small markets, too. Can you imagine the inundation there?
Yeah.
You said degradation of the process. Do you think that also discourages people from running for office, knowing that they cannot raise or don't come to the table with the amount of money that sometimes parties now expect candidates to
Yeah.
bankroll part of their campaign?
It eliminates some people from the process from the get-go because, as you point out, not everybody has access to that kind of money. Look at the amount of money that Terry Lynn Land has put personally into this race. At one point, just pulling more than $1 million, I think, out of her pocket to
Spent $3.5 million of her own,
Of her own money.
That's, I mean, most people can't dream of having that kind of money in the first place, but then having so much of it that $3.5 million is okay to spend on a race where you're 8 points behind.
And you look at the decision of Camp and Rogers not to get into that race. A lot of it has to do with, do I really want to become a fundraising machine like this?
Yeah.
What about the ads for the Supreme Court race? Because I think for people, the knowledge of those candidates is so few and far that that's the only thing that you really have to judge these people
Yeah,
on.
well, I think that's where we've seen the degradation of the process in the extreme. This idea that much money, particularly from outside, again, from outside influences, not from the candidates themselves. You have one candidate who spent a lot
Well,
on
candidates can't
themselves.
raise money themselves, and that's the problem of having elected judges who can't raise money
Who
for
can't
themselves.
raise money
They ha-
because they're supposedly not.
But in this time around, this is a lot lighter spending and a lot less intense advertising than past. What do you notice about this year's Supreme Court races? I haven't seen
Way
a
quieter.
single negative ad.
Yeah.
Remember
It's not
the
been as
sleeping
nasty.
justice ads and some of the other ads from the past? It's not been nasty at all. They haven't had a single negative ad. This is what really campaigns ought to look
Okay,
like.
so what have the ads been that have stood out in your mind this election cycle?
I liked the Terry Lynn Land coffee ad where she just
Well, she
sat
kept
and-
checking her watch.
I liked the Gary Peters, I've got this old shirt on. I don't spend a lot of money. Ad.
Well, and why didn't Terry Lynn Land knock that one out of the park? He says, I'm not going to spend my own money recklessly. I mean, why didn't she come back with one? Yeah, he won't spend his money recklessly, but he's spending yours like a drunken sailor.
There you go. Nolan's the
he's not, 'cause
campaign
that would've
manager
been
now.
inaccurate. That's why she
It would
didn't
have
say
been
that.
true.
Okay. All right, well, let's go ahead and take a look at a quick look at other races to watch tomorrow, the biggest items on the state agenda moving forward in the next year, and get to your questions as well. So other things we need to look at, Attorney General's race, also Secretary of State.
I don't think either of those are very close. I don't know. Mark Totten, I think, is a very strong candidate for Attorney General, a very interesting candidate. I think his experience in the courtroom is not what voters may have expected for somebody to be the Attorney General. So Schuette probably wins that. Secretary of State is a much wider gap in my estimation. I don't think Godfrey Dillard is a particularly good
Incumbents
candidate
almost
for that.
never lose those races. I mean,
It's also
people just
true.
don't know that much about them.
Okay, we want to get to a question from Twitter. Brian L. Love tweeted out, what percentage of registered voters do you think are going to vote tomorrow?
Well, isn't
We
that the big
agreed that
question?
It's about half, right? Half statewide. The voter turnout question in Detroit is going to be important because this Democratic surge to get people who don't vote in midterm elections to vote through these absentees. If you see that take root in Detroit, that could influence the outcome.
And you know, the clerk was talking about a 40% turnout in Detroit. If that happens, I think Snyder's toast. Although you got to think there's a lot fewer Detroit voters than there were 4 years
I was
ago.
going to say, I mean, you don't have more voters in Detroit than you do in Oakland County anymore, isn't that right?
No.
Yeah. So again, the balance. I wrote a column, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago about how Jennifer Granholm in her second win in 2006 would have won if no votes had even been cast in the city of Detroit. That's the difference in the population
That's not
numbers.
true for Shower.
No.
No.
It's not going to be true for Shower.
All right, let's talk about, in the last moments that we have left, kind of beyond Election Day. And what are the big agenda items do you think going to be for the state starting in January? What are the things that we're going to have to tackle?
One of the problems, I think, in this election, and particularly the governor's race, has been the lack of big ideas. I mean, name one huge proposal that either candidate has on the table for people to really bite into and debate. This has been a sort of sleepy, in terms of policy issues, a sleepy election. That doesn't mean we don't have big problems. Obviously, roads is a huge problem that we haven't figured out how to solve. I think education and where we're headed with education, I mean, there's this big push to move us more toward privatization and quote unquote innovation in education. There's a big pushback against that, saying, look, let's invest in public education. I think that takes center stage pretty early in the next
I agree with that. Education. 30 seconds, Nolan.
Well, you also have to deal with the issue of municipal finances. You can't have so many of these communities and school districts falling into emergency management. The state has to do a better job up front of bringing some fiscal discipline to these local units of government.
All right, well, that is going to do it for our Election Eve
done
special.
already?
We're done already? I know. We could go for a couple of more
another
hours. So thanks, you guys, and thanks to everyone who is following along on Twitter. Make sure you vote tomorrow. If you have any last-minute questions on the issues and candidates, just go to our website at MiWeek.org. You can see the town hall with Governor Rick Snyder and Congressman Mark Schauer at 9 o'clock tonight on the World Channel, so you can check that out. Remember that we're always on Facebook and we're on Twitter, too. And for the election breakdown that you don't want to miss, come back and see us for MiWeek on Thursday night at 7:30. For all of us at Detroit Public TV, I'm Christy McDonald. Have a great night. Vote tomorrow. We'll see you Thursday.
Recently, Michigan's economy has begun to turn around. Michigan's gained over 250,000 new jobs. We've paid off $20 billion in long-term debt. And our population is increasing for the first time in a decade. But to make Michigan a top 10 state, there's still plenty of work to be done. Step up and help put Michigan on top. Learn what you can do at MichiganTurnaroundPlan.com.
Funding is also provided by Delta.